Good morning, everyone. Just checking in here. Going to be just me today. So, going to ride along and we're going to take a look at what we typically do. So, going to start sharing my screen so we can see what's going on. And let me share the window. One sec. Okay. All right. So, we're going to start right here in the US economic calendar. All right. So, what we're looking at today is today's Thursday, May 14th. So, we're looking at US retail sales minus autos, initial jobless claims, the import price index, the import price index minus fuel, and business inventories. Okay, we're not. You have Fed chair speaking as well today. It's just something good to note and pay attention to, but not something I'm going to be focused on this morning. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this information. All right, and then we're going to jump over here to Forex Factory. Okay, so this information is updated as of a few minutes ago. So again, we go right to red folders. Again, starting with the US dollar. So 8:30 is when I started to see those core retail sales month over month come in, and then retail sales. So basically last month we were at 1.9%. The forecast was zero point 0.7. We were right on track with the forecast of 0.7. Okay. And so you can get a little bit more detail on this, the core retail sales, that's the change in total value of sales at the retail level, excluding automobiles. A number greater than forecast is good for currency. And why we care? Because it's the primary gauge of consumer spending, which accounts for the majority of the overall economic activity. All right. So that stayed neutral. It's right on track. That's not going to really move or shake anything. The change, and then we have the retail sales month over month, the change in the total value of sales at the retail level. Again, greater than forecast is good for currency, and it's a primary gauge of consumer spending. All right. So both of those held pretty true. Unemployment claims is an orange folder, so this has a little bit more power than the yellow. But as you can see right here, projection was 205. Last month was 199. We're up to 211. Okay, so that's lower. So that's going to hurt currency. So as we see here, it's the numbers of individuals who filed for unemployment insurance for the first time last week. Greater than forecast, good for currency. Less than forecast, bad for currency. All right. So it is, as you can see, why traders care. This is good information right here just to know. Although it's generally viewed as a lagging indicator, the number of unemployed people is an important signal of the overall economic health because consumer spending is highly correlated with the labor market conditions. Unemployment is also a major consideration for those steering the country's monetary policy. All right. General import prices right here. It's a yellow folder, but was zero point 0.9 last month, was 1.0 was the forecast, 1%, and we came in at 1.9. So this is the change in price of imported goods and services purchased domestically. All right, and why we care? It contributes to inflation for business and consumers, especially those who heavily rely on imported goods and services. All right, so that's good information. Business inventories again slightly below. So zero point 0.4 was last month. The forecast was zero point 0.8. We were 0.9, so slightly below. That's bad for currency, but again, it's slight and it's a yellow folder, so the impact is minimal. Again, why we care? It's a signal of future business spending because companies are more likely to purchase goods once they have depleted inventories. Okay, so that's that. And then we have member speak. Natural gas storage is going to be released shortly. And then mortgage delinquencies is going to be released a little bit later, and that was 4.26. We'll see what it is this month. All right. So now we're going to head over to FinViz. Just make sure we have updated information. So we refresh, even though it looks like it had just refreshed before I did that. Give it a quick once over on the news. Okay. Consumers spent more in April despite high gas prices. Interesting. All right. Not surprising. Dow surges 300 points to retake 500 levels as Cisco shares jump. Okay, they were reporting that before the market opened. That was an opportunity there, and we'll go over that in a minute. But that was being reported this morning, way before the market opened. Japan's long-dated bond slump. Connie rolls. Trump. U.S. stocks climb after retail data with S&P 500 trading in record territory. Stocks rise as Nvidia jumps and the Trump-Xi summit kicks off. Okay. Quick look over here. Cisco surges most since .com on raised outlook. AI focused job cuts. Let's see, Iranian commandos board and seize Honduras flagship off United Arab Emirates. I mean, that's important to know, but we'll see what the response is. Okay, Apple, I am bullish again. Good to know if you invest in Apple or you're investing in stocks, but not something that's driving me right now, although Apple is a major contributor. All right, so that's pretty much it for that right now. I'll go one last time to here, which is just some information that we're just going to provide a little bit more detail on some of the stuff we just saw over on Forex Factory and on FinViz. Again, I'm focused on US stuff. Okay, that's from 18 minutes ago. I already read that. That's fairly interesting. Treasury yields ease on Thursday. Okay, that's important, but I'm not focusing on that right now. Export prices unexpectedly climb. They advanced by 3.3 month over month in April. Jobless claims above forecast. The number of people claiming unemployment rose by 12,000 from the previous peak of 211,000. Yeah, on the first week of May. So just general information to pay attention to. Import prices, we saw this. Retail sales rise as expected in April. All right, so nothing, again, earth-shattering here. And now we'll go back into, start with gold, start at my daily. First thing we did was, first of all, let's bring this down so it's a normal view. We adjusted our daily resistance previous candle to here. So that's a candle from yesterday. So there's the resistance line. There's the support line. We adjusted that. We went in and grabbed our daily target. Okay, so we got this from GNT and we took a look at what they were providing in the morning for the daily target for the day. So the daily target is 47.45. All right, in terms of the pivot, click on that too. The pivot is 46.68. So that's something we looked at. Now, I was in the middle of something else this morning helping a client and didn't see this, but as you can see, it came down and it touched that today. So let's get a little bit more detail on that. Okay, nothing else had to be changed in this with regards to demand zones didn't change and supply zone didn't change. So that's it on my daily. On my 4-hour, well, I can see that the 4-hour touched that daily support line previous candle and the pivot point. This would have been a great indicator to buy at this point. All right, I didn't do it. I didn't see it. I'm not going to FOMO the trade. I missed it. That's just par for the course. I missed it. All right, so we have this supply zone here, which was once a demand zone that got knocked back to a supply zone. That one is still a supply zone flip 2. Okay. And then let's see, we have, that's a 1 hour. So I'm going to lay off that. 4-hour right here, demand zone, supply zone, demand zone. If this candle closes below this, this will go away. This will be the third flip. So right now, this is a demand zone flip 2. There are 2 hours, 31 minutes. If that closes below this demand zone, then that is gone. And you can see it's approaching on the 4-hour, the 200, which is an important line. All right, so let's go over to the 1 hour. You also want to check the RSI. The RSI, it's at 49.11. It's just below the 50, and it's just below Jerome. So the 50 and Jerome, which is the 10, are the yellow line is Jerome, and the yellow line is the 10. The purple line is the RSI. So at 49.24, 49.23, we're fluctuating around that. I'm not going to do anything until it either goes down more or up more. It's pretty much in a semi-consolidated state right now. So if I examine out or I back out here, you can kind of see it's staying within this range. Now, when we go to the 1 hour, this is where we start to see a little bit more. All right, so this is what I missed right here. That's a big buy. I missed it. So not only did you have the pivot point here, not only was that the candle did it break the daily support line for the previous day, which was here. It broke through this demand zone, and then it broke through the pivot point, and then it broke through the 200, and it almost came to the front wall here, and then it started to pull back. This would have been a great buy off the 200. I didn't get it. I didn't see it live. That happened somewhere in that 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. time frame. Again, I missed it, and I'm frustrated that I missed it, but it's par for the course. I got to let it go and move on. All right, it just is what it is. So now we're focused on this candle right here. Currently, we're at the top of this demand zone, just watching what's going on. Okay, so there's a support line here. We're just going to watch it right now. I'm not taking this trade right now. It's not enough going on. We're going to move over to Euro USD. And again, same thing. We're going to start on the daily. So let's look over here. So this candle didn't really move. It's the same point as yesterday, pretty much, for the daily resistance line in the previous candle. The last 3 days have been, actually, sorry, this candle does move because for today, it drops down to here. But for 3 days, it was pretty much the exact same point. And then yesterday, it dropped down to here, and this is our live candle today on the daily. So there's our daily resistance line in our previous candle. We've marked that. We have a supply zone that formed yesterday, so we have marked that as well, that daily supply zone. We still have this demand zone that is still a demand zone, and we are just monitoring what this candle's doing right now, seeing if it's going to break, if it's going to go all the way down to the 200. It almost tested that earlier, but it didn't get down there. Okay, and our target for the day is right here. Target for the day on Euro USD 1.16750. All right, so looking for that to continue down, and here's our pivot point right here. Okay, and the pivot point today is 1.17350. All right, so let's drop to the 4-hour. By the way, one other thing to notice there, look at the RSI. It's heading down. It's already broke Jerome, and it's already broke the 50. Okay, so it's at 48.70. All right, just good to notice. On the 4-hour, okay, so it is right at the 200, which is also right at the back wall of this demand zone. So that's 2 confirmations right now. That's probably a good point to buy. All right, but we have to kind of watch. The trend is still down, but is it going to bounce off that? That's something that we want to watch. So what we see in terms of structure, and this is the 4-hour. This was already here, so we're not touching this. Here's the resistance line and high right here. It's like the area high. This is from the other day as well. That's from Sunday, so that's not being touched. It's still headed down. This right here is from Friday. Nope, sorry. This is from Thursday. This is still in place too. It was a demand zone. Now it's a supply zone flipped 1. This is in place. This is a daily. This is the daily that we already looked at. And on this, sorry, I didn't mean to move that. And on this 4-hour over here, this 4-hour is from last Tuesday. All right. And this wick touched it, but that's the only thing that's really even interacted with it. As you can see, if we zoom in on it, that wick came pretty much to the back wall, went past the 50% line, and went past the front wall, almost reached the back wall, didn't quite reach it, and then bounced off. All right, so watching that. Let's go down to the 1-hour. Actually, one last thing, sorry, RSI on that, heading down, both of them pointing down. So Jerome's pointing down, it's below the 50, and the RSI is pointing down, probably pointing to about 4 o'clock. All right, so just paying attention to that. That's still a negative trend on the 4-hour. 2 hours doing the same thing. On the 1-hour, okay, so we have some exhaustion here, and that's because we're approaching 20, okay, on the RSI. The RSI, though, has now started to balance out. This is what we were talking about, potentially being a buy on that, with the 4-hour hitting the back wall and the 200, and we have exhaustion on these candles, okay, and both candles, the body is right here, okay, for the last 2 candles. We had the wick go down almost to a tweezer top, but we have to see what's going to happen. There's still 25 minutes left on this candle. All right, but curious to see what's going to happen. I would expect it's probably going to bounce off this and bounce back up. But again, the trend is down. So we just have to watch it because I don't really want to trade against the trend unless you have enough strong indicators letting you know that it's going to be going in the opposite direction. Right now, our strong indicators are here, the 200. We have the back wall. And then we have 2 candles with exhaustion and you're seeing that it's the back wall of the 1-hour demand zone, which is inside the daily demand zone. So there is a lot suggesting that is a very strong buy at this point. Again, not a huge one because I still think the trend for the day is down, but just watching that, and if you were going to jump in on that buy, that would be a pretty strong point to make that decision. All right, so that's what I'm looking at on that. RSI again, it already went below Jerome. It's below the 50. It continued all the way down. Right now, it's at 22.8. We'll see what it continues at, and if it's going to come back up, or if it's going to continue down, or if it's just going to consolidate. So it could sit around here for a while. We just want to watch and see what it's going to do. Again, this is where my limited knowledge, being only doing this for just over almost a half year right now, my knowledge is dangerous to the point where I know enough to do well. Of my goal every day is roughly $250. Anything less than that is acceptable. I'm just trying to minimize the negatives, but my focus every day is getting 250 plus. That's what I'm shooting for every single day. All right. So other things to notice, okay, the dollar index 98.59, dollar index has been going up. So we're on the 1 hour here. Let's move back to the daily so we can just see it on a bigger scale. So here's what's been going on with the dollar. So our recent high was right here on March 31st. Then we kind of continued a downward trend all the way down to April 17th. Then we went up again April 27th and kind of consolidated. And then starting April 30th, May 1st hit, we've been going down, and now we're slowly working our way back up. Again, on this, we see that it's crossed the 10, it's crossed the 20, it's crossing the 200 right now. It's already eclipsed it. You can see it's above it over here by the green being above the yellow. It's barely above it, but it's above it. And the wick stopped at the 66 before. So the 66 is a resistance line there that we just want to pay attention to. Well, we look down at the RSI. It's already broken Jerome, and it's already broken the 50. Again, barely broken the 50, and it is on its way up, but something just to monitor there. On the volatility index, just so we can understand what volatility is in the market, so you can see that, again, similar, starting May 1st, March 30th right here, and then March 31st, volatility decreased, spiked a little bit, not a lot though. On the 23rd, went down, and now we're kind of been consolidating for the past week or so. So again, looking at it on a larger scale as to what's been going on, highest volatility is right around here, March 6th, March 9th. This is pretty much war related. So you can see all these dates here. This is October of last year. That spiked a little bit. November, that's the election. Sorry, no, it's not. The election was the year before. But just paying attention to this right here. You had high volatility on the 17th, high volatility on the 20th, the 21st. Then things came back down to normal. And right here on March 9th, we had a spike again. So again, just paying attention because that can have a relationship on when volatility is high, and people get concerned, and then that's when gold becomes the standard because people know that it's tangible and people will rush to buy gold. So that's why we're just watching the volatility. We're also taking a look at the index, the dollar index, and how that pertains to what's going on as well. And so we want to know and understand these two numbers. Again, nothing to write home about right now, just being observational. Thing to note about XRP, again, our rule of thumb that we learned and that I do stand by is buy, buy, buy. And while it's under 150, buy, buy, buy as much as possible. Okay. XRP, again, by the way, before I say this, we are just speculating. We are not financial advisors. Don't take our advice as word is bond. Okay. We are literally just providing advice that based on what we're seeing in the market as we're learning how to leverage the markets. But when I hear people who I trust telling me what they're seeing and I see the results that they've had, I tend to follow. Success leaves clues. Okay. So anything that I'm telling you right now, I'm just sharing news. There's no guarantee that it'll provide any result. It is literally just me sharing with you what I'm learning and what I would do and what I am doing in this market. All right. So if we head over to Bitcoin real quick, we're going to start on the daily. My daily is a little bit more busy than normal because there's a lot of resistance lines because I wanted to see as it starts to go up higher because I believe it's going to go up higher. So I left those lines in there. So let me just confirm a few things right here. Bitcoin, I want to confirm my target. So if I go in here, my target line, I have set to 81.71. Okay. And give me 1 minute to log back in. While we're waiting to pull that up, I will pull up a couple of these zones. All right. So we have this zone right here. This was a demand zone. This demand zone was up here. This candle closed below it. This makes it a supply zone flipped 1. So this is going to now be a daily supply zone flipped 1. Okay. Then right here, we go down, we have a demand zone. That's still a demand zone. This has not been touched, and neither has this demand zone. Both of those exist. Also note that I'm in Heikin Ashi candles. Okay. So when you see this, if it's not exactly like you're seeing on yours, it's because I'm in Heikin Ashi. All right. I like trading on this. I've been doing this for the past week. I'm sticking with it because I've had good results and I'm comfortable with it. All right. So things to note here. This candle right here came down to that pivot point. It came down to the 20, broke through the 20 a little bit, and then pulled back. Same thing happened yesterday. All right. Let's go to the 4-hour. Let me zoom in so it's not as busy. Okay, so we have a 4-hour demand zone right here. Okay, that became a supply zone right there. So 4-hour supply zone, demand zone, flipped to a 4-hour supply zone, flipped 1 when this went below. If this closes up here, that's going to be a demand zone. This 4-hour supply demand zone became a supply zone. That did not close above it, so it stays the supply zone, flipped 1. And this one stays as well because this has not been breached. So you can see at this pivot point that we have down here, though, I mean, we're on the 4-hour. So this has been, you have this resistance line that's kind of held here, and you have this pivot point going back to yesterday. It's kind of been a line of demarcation. It hasn't really crossed below that. I mean, it's the wick shot through, but then it pulled back. So just understanding this line and the power that it has here. Again, this is just trends and observing what we're seeing. Again, not telling you this is something that I would base my trading strategy on, but it's just something that I'm observing. All right. In terms of crosses, the 20 is crossed below the 66. The 10 is below that. And the 200 is where? Down here. Okay, so we don't have a true E3 cross, but we do have 20 crossing a 66. Okay, so that can often be a downward trend indicator. Same with the 10 crossing a 66. Curious to see if the 10 ends up crossing the 20 at some point, just again, observing. On the 1-hour, what we have is, all right, so we have, this looks like this might have to go. Demand zone, supply zone flipped 1, demand zone flipped 2, this is gone. All right, it's been breached 3 times, so that's done. Okay, so I haven't marked up this one yet, so we can kind of go through it. I'm going to move this. There's new information right here. This is newer, so I'm going to move this over here and drag it down here because that's included in that. So this is a new demand zone. I mean supply zone, sorry. That's a new supply zone. Stuff up here didn't get touched, so that's going to stay the same. Supply zone flipped 1, that's going to stay the same. What is this? 1, 2, that's gone too. Okay. This over here was a demand zone, up to a supply zone, up to a demand zone, back to a supply zone. This is gone. This demand zone is held, so we're going to leave that. And then right here, we have a small demand zone that just formed. So it's going to be a 1-hour demand zone. We have a 1-hour supply zone right here. Again, a small one. That was not a good job. Be better. Here we go. All right. And we have another demand zone down here. So a lot of little movement in this consolidated area, but just want to properly mark it so we have our structure in place. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I'm good with that. All right, so again, just paying attention to this, what do we see in this trend, okay? So it's basically this wick hit the 66, came down and hit the 20. So between the 20 and the 66, it's been operating. All right, so we're just going to, again, observe that, watch it, how much time's left on that candle. We're on the 1 hour. Price is right here. So we have 14 minutes, 30 seconds left on that candle. All right, so let's see what it does. See if it spikes up to the 66 or if it continues to pull back. Again, not getting in this right now either. There's nothing that's really saying I need to go in. I'm paying attention to the RSI. What I am seeing is this, okay? RSI pointing up above the 50, above Jerome. If I go to the 40, the 4 hour, below the 50, but above Jerome, okay? Barely, but above Jerome. If I drop down, all right, so we're above Jerome, we're facing up. We're above Jerome, we're facing up on the 30, on the 15. Okay, we go, so look at the difference in where we're pointing here. This is pointing to like 1 o'clock, all right? This is pointing to like 2 o'clock, I would say. The 15 minute, again, that's pushing close to like maybe 1:30, almost maybe 2 o'clock. All right, still an upward trend, but you can see it's not like that V correction spike anymore. It's kind of narrowing out. It's also exhausted. All right, so this candle is exhausted. And that's because we're at 76, we're above 70. Anytime it gets above that 70, 75 mark, you'll start to see it show up as white on our chart. When we have Einstein, that's because it's marking it as exhausted, which means that there's a good point that it's getting ready to turn around, especially when that gets up in that 80, above 80 to 90 range. We definitely want to start monitoring that or expecting it to turn around. Okay. On the 5 minute, again, above Jerome, above the 50, pointing more around that 230. Quick peek at the 3 and the 1. Again, upward trend, same. So we're seeing the same trend. It's gradual. It's not spiking up, but you got exhaustion on the 1 minute. Exhaustion. And I also see this too. I like to pay attention to, if we go into shorter time frames, the last 2 calls were sells. Last few calls were sells. This would have been a win. This would have been a win. This would not have been a win yet. It would have been probably a take profit 1, a TP1. Oh no, TP1 was down here. It never hit that yet. So we'll have to observe that. But again, just paying attention. I don't trade the 1 minute and the 3 minute. It's just, it moves quickly, and I just don't spend my time on it. I'd rather make bigger trades that give me more value. This one, again, hit TP2. Okay. On the 15 minute, I haven't seen any buy calls, by the way. Curious that there wasn't a buy call down here, but there were other conditions that we're going to see. We also have right here, see, this is a good buy indicator right here. All right, so you have the 10, which shot through to 66, and the 20. Okay, so this would have been a great time to get in on the buy right here when that happened. And actually, we probably have that over here because that's one of the alerts that I have set up. So we're in Bitcoin on the 1 hour right here, 7:26 a.m. in 9 seconds. Oh, that's down here. That's on this one. Oh, I'm on the 15 minute. That's why. On the 1 hour, it crossed right here at 4 a.m. And then it's crossing up here. Interesting. Is that Awanda or is that Saxo? That's Awanda. SMA 10 crossing the 20. Okay. So needless to say, just paying attention, watching this bounce between the 66 on gold, watching the bounce between the 66 and the 200. That's where it's kind of going to be my general boundaries. Again, this pivot point right now is right at the 200. So monitoring that and watching that. We have 2 zones in front of it. We have a couple of resistance lines, but these support lines that have been flipped to resistance lines. Resistance line flipped 1. Resistance line flipped 1. Okay. So we have some resistance lines, just observing and watching. And here's our daily support line from the previous candle. So seeing if this is going to pull back and then take the buy. Again, right now, not doing anything with it personally. It's just not something that I'm very confident in. Again, I do see on the only thing that I have a decent amount of confidence in right now, based on what I'm seeing on the RSI, is a buy on Bitcoin. See Bitcoin going up. We see that on if we go up, three's a buy, five's a buy, seven's a buy. I mean, 15's a buy, 30's a buy. Wow, it's pointing straight up. 1 hour is a buy. That's starting to go up more. So that's a sharper up. 2 hours straight up. 4 hours up and growing. In the 8 hour is approaching the 50 right now. It's still below Jerome. But the 8 hours on a buy with TP1 up here. So that's interesting. Bitcoin has an 8-hour buy. I like that buy. I like that buy a lot. Everything I'm seeing. So I'm going to probably jump in on this Einstein trade, take that buy all the way up to TP1, which is 80.89, sorry, 80,893. All right. That usually does well by me, and that's something I'll pay attention to. The only thing that I don't like on that is the 10 is crossing the 20 right here in a downward trend. And we have a resistance line here we already broke through. We have a resistance line here that we need to break through. So we have two confirmations of adverse reaction where back wall it has to get through, and it didn't make it past here before. And then you have the 10 crossing the 20 in a downward trend. That's just something I'm going to observe. So I might take it up to, instead of taking it all the way up here, maybe we take it up to the 10 or the 20. I'll observe it. If it starts to pull back and turn around, get out. Otherwise, I'll ride it up to here. All right. So I think that's going to be it for today. I appreciate everyone checking in. I love doing this, guys. This is so much fun, and it really can change lives. You got to get involved, though. If you're not pushing the button, if you're not learning, if you're not out here trading, even if it's just paper, that's huge. I trade paper all the time. My son trades paper. So you got to get out here. You got to do it. You got to learn, and you got to go. It's just fun. But if you're not doing, it's the law of use. What you don't use, you lose. So thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, and I won't be here tomorrow, but Don and Steve will. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I look